You better go and vote and get up off your back. The cipher rolls on, lift your head, get your voice up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Braxton B. Coates. We will be getting started shortly. I have the pleasure of serving as president of the African American Caucus. And so thank you for joining us. We will be getting started momentarily.
Personal for anyone to ignore. Voice to be heard. Take the opportunity. The responsibility. Your voice has to be heard. Save the world, save the world.
Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you. Don't get too wrapped up in someone else's style. It'll change in a while. You gotta find what you're all about and know just who you are without a doubt. Everyone's a star. Gift you must find in time to take you far. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The whole world's a stage, and no one else can play a part. Ooh, that's why I say.
So we will go ahead and get started with our forum. I'll pause here for a moment so that we can ensure that our music has been stopped, please. And thank you all again for joining us. My name is Braxton B. Coates, and I have the pleasure of serving as president of the Mecklenburg County African American, or excuse me, of the African American Caucus of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. On behalf of this caucus, I would like to welcome you to the first of two school board forums that we will be hosting. This evening, our forums will feature districts 1, 2, and 3 and their candidates. We hope that this evening's forum is an educational opportunity for our membership as well as the greater Mecklenburg County community to learn more about the candidates for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education. And at this time, I am pleased to introduce to you all our forum's moderator, Mr. Dedrick Russell of Gray Television, who was also previously the education reporter for WBTV News here in Charlotte. And I would turn the forum over to Dedrick Russell, our moderator at this time.
Thank you so much, President Bicos, and welcome to this this forum. We want this forum to be engaging, informative, and we want you to get all of the information that you need so you can make an informed decision come November. Before we go further, I would like to have and talk about the rules of engagement. The rules of engagement. We're going to start off that candidates will have opening statements. You will have 2 minutes for your opening statement. Question and answer period. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each of the questions. Each candidate will receive 1 rebuttal for your particular forum. Now, what is a rebuttal? A rebuttal, our definition of a rebuttal is that it can be used when your name is mentioned from another candidate and or when unfactual information is presented. When that happens, you can use that rebuttal and you will have 1 minute for your rebuttal. At the end, candidates will have 90 seconds to deliver a closing statement. And to keep everybody on task, we do have a timekeeper, and our timekeeper will be none other than Miss Yvette Townsend Ingram. When your time is up, she will simply say time. And when you hear time, that means your time is up. So we want to be respectful for everyone, and we will get things started. Right now, we have the candidates for District 1. District 1. We're going to start the clock now with 2-minute opening statements, and we will start with the incumbent, Rhonda Cheek. Good evening, Ms. Cheek.
Good evening, Mr. Russell, and good evening, everybody. My name's Rhonda Lennon Cheek. I've been a Mecklenburg County resident since I was 16 years old and a resident of District 1 since 1990. I raised my 3 children in District 1. They all graduated from District 1 high schools and have gone on to really great careers and productive lives ahead of them. I just want to talk a little bit about why I decided to do this again. This is not my first time on the rodeo here. I was not originally kind of leaning against it, but had some health concerns that were resolved. And I really felt that the question was still burning inside of me. How can we make things better for kids? And I feel like I'm the best person to do that. We've got a lot ahead of us over the next 3 years that this term will last. One of them is getting a permanent superintendent in place. We're going to have a big bond referendum, and we're going to have a big discussion about student assignment boundaries. So some big rocks that are ahead of us. I think that having an experienced person with institutional knowledge, I'm actually a CMS graduate. So I've been involved in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools since 1978, and I've been around for a really long time. So I'm looking forward to keeping to do the work. The board is at a unique time and place right now. It's going to be a place where somebody with good collaboration that knows how to build relationships and work across the aisle is going to be essential, because we have got to work together as a board. It takes 5 votes to do anything, and that's one of the easiest things I learned is they have to count to 5. So I'm excited about the opportunity to come back and serve. I'm excited about the opportunity to do good things for children. And one of the things that drives me is a Tibetan proverb that says, a child without education is like a bird without wings. I think we need to make sure that every child in Mecklenburg County gets those wings so they can not just fly, but they can soar to the highest levels. So I look forward to sharing a little bit more about me with you this evening. And thank you so much.
Your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Melissa Easley.
Hello, everyone, and thank you. Yes, I am Melissa Easley. This is my first time running for office, so I'm a fresh face here, but I am a 14-year veteran teacher. 10 of those years were directly in CMS and Title I schools. I'm also a mother of 2, both in CMS schools. And I have been an educational advocate for the last 6 or 7 years, not only in Mecklenburg, but across the state as well. I am the co-founder and runner of North Carolina Teachers United, which is the largest pro-public forum resource hub in the state. Actually, it's one of the largest. We've been recognized by several different forums as being, one of the largest across the country as well. So I'm very excited to bring my knowledge and my relationships from across the state, from in Raleigh, from here, to work to make sure that we have the best opportunities and most up-to-date and best available resources for all of our students so that our communities can thrive. Something that I'm very big on, excuse me, I'm sorry. Something that I am very big on is that everything is connected. And so if we have strong teachers, then we're going to have strong students. If we have strong students, then we're going to have strong schools. If we have strong schools, then we're going to have strong communities. And my biggest platform is getting the communities involved and getting our culture of CMS with our teachers, with our staff, with our community, with our, with our parents back to where it was several years ago. I am not one to dwell on the past, but I want to look forward to what is in the future. As Ms. Cheek said, we've got some big things coming up, superintendent, student placement, all of those things that are coming up that are going to affect all of our students.
All right, and thank you, Ms. Easley. Next up, we have Mr. Hamani Fisher.
Good evening, all, and thank you, Mr. Russell. I really appreciate it. My name is Hamani Fisher, and I am delighted to be here with you tonight. I'm currently running for District 1 seat for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Board. And I am running because I'm concerned about our school system. My goal is to reconstruct relationships of trust and restore confidence back into our school system. The future of our children is at hand, and There's a school system that is affecting our community. And I want to sit on the board and be able to affect policy and build culture that's conducive for great education. We have a couple of things in front of us that we have to address, like lower outcome-based performance, lowering of academic standards, post-pandemic learning loss, and the need for an emotionally and physically safe learning environment. Why am I qualified for this? Because I'm a parent, number one, of 3 young men who have matriculated through Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. I came to this city 17 years ago, and I saw as a parent, as well as a community partner, what it takes and how to advocate for our children. I came here as a director of student development, over 3,500 students, and me advocating within CMS was very, very important and one of my main goals. Also, a little bit personally about me, my parents were educators. So I grew up in a home where education was of value. Matter of fact, my father still, after 33 years, is a professor of early childhood education at Borough Manhattan Community College. And my mother was over at the district for early childhood education in Queens, New York. We have a lot of things going on within CMS, and we are hemorrhaging. When we have a school system that is losing as many students as they are, and so many issues that are coming up in our school system, we need change. And I want to be a part of that change. And so I'm hoping that you will vote me in to be a part of that change, as I have been a community advocate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we will have Mr. Bill Fountain. Good evening, Mr. Fountain.
Good evening. I'm Bill Fountain, and thank you for the opportunity. For over a year, I've been regularly speaking at the CMS School Board against the invasion of woke culture into our schools. Our schools should be havens of structure to teach children to be productive members of society. Yes, the 3 R's, and giving them purpose and hope. In spite of this worthy goal, the 8 women on this school board have forced in woke, disturbing, disrupting agents such as pornography books, gender identity, spinning the moral compasses from right to wrong of our children. They've manipulated equity to convince Black and brown children they're victims, snatching away their self-worth and telling them they're entitled, thus robbing them of their will to improve themselves. They also insist that troublemakers not be disciplined because of some race or gender notion, which undermines the teachers maintaining a productive classroom, and it also reinforces bad behavior of the troublemakers and bullies, which sometimes places the orderly students with fear, and maybe that's one of the reasons they don't come to school. From my observation, the 8 women on this school board are more concerned about social engineering than children's well-being. It is clear that last year's infamous Hopewell Town Hall meeting, where both teachers and parents were upset at the lack of discipline, only to be demeaned by one of the 8 women on the school board. Loving parents discipline their children. CMS wokeism is rotting our children's morals and robbing many of the students of hope. It's no wonder we have low-performing and unsafe schools. To save the schools, these 8 women need to be voted out, and I'm the only candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Let's get into our discussion. This is the African American Caucus of Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. So I just want to know these test scores. Let's look at them. Black students, 36.6% proficient, 20.7% college and career ready. Latino students, 36.6% proficient, 21.9% college and career ready. 45% of CMS schools are graded D or F. I want to go down the line, and I want you to give me your thoughts, your perspective, what's going on. We'll start with Ms. Cheek. Your time starts now.
So the pandemic obviously exacerbated some things that were already in place. We already had gaps between student demographic groups. We already had some issues that were at work in our school district. We had some things in place at that time that were actually starting to improve that, but the pandemic really set us back. incredibly. And it really, the differences between the Black and brown students was even more significant. We had much higher remote learning in those subgroups than we did in a lot of the suburban schools. So what are some of the things that we need to do? We know right now, number one is we have to have kids in school. Absenteeism increased to 29%, chronic absenteeism. 29% of our kids are chronically absent. That means they're not in class. We know we've got to get parents engaged in our schools. We've got to make parents feel welcome and part of our schools. But the other thing that we have to do, that we spoke a lot about at the school board meeting Tuesday night, was we really have to have intentional instructional time. And we saw some examples of that.
I'm sorry. Let me remind everyone that you have 1 minute or 60 seconds to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Ms. Easley. What are your thoughts about these latest test scores?
Well, of course, they're not good. But if you look at them at face value, yes, they are absolutely horrible and they are not where we want to be as a district. That doesn't mean we didn't have growth over the past year. Remember, with the pandemic, some of our biggest and hardest hit areas are our minority students and our minority families. And so that takes a lot of time to come into things and to rebound. But I do want to point out that locally within our round of our districts, we grew the most. And so the things that are put into place already are continuing to work, and we will continue to do that. The second thing that we need to worry about is our culture, because once again, everything is connected. If we have a good culture in our schools, if our teachers want to be there, if they feel supported and they feel like that we have their back, then they're going to continue to work very, very hard, which in turn will turn around into classroom achievement. So it's all connected. It's not one thing versus another. It's all connected, and we need to do all things.
Thank you. Mr. Fisher, what say you?
Yes, I would somewhat disagree with my opponents because yes, it exacerbated it, but it showed a problem that was existing before the pandemic. When we look at the disparities of educational attainment in Mecklenburg County that existed in 2019, there was only from 3rd to 8th grade students scoring at or above a level 4. It was 47.4% of students that was doing that. And so what happens, you only had 30.2 of Black students in this district scoring that, 37.5% of Hispanic students, and 40.3% of American Indian students. So it showed that there were disparities that were happening before. And now when you look at our grades, our schools that's graded A has actually decreased, and we have more failing schools. So what we need to do is we need to have a change. There needs to be a change, and COVID just exacerbated it and exposed what was actually happening. We needed to start from leadership and filter through the culture of Mecklenburg County.
Mr. Fountain, what say you?
I say, I go back to some of the statements I said at the very beginning, is that if you don't have an orderly classroom, in other words, you have students that are disrupting the classroom, it's going to be difficult for students to learn. And one of the things I've heard is that they send a student out to the counselor and they come back with a lollipop, and that reinforces the bad behavior and tells the teacher and the other students that they don't care about the manageable classroom. The other thing is that when we start thinking about how much time is the teachers are spending on the social and emotional learning, and I think that robs that from the 3 R's, which is really what our students ought to be focused on. And I think if we try narrowing that down to go down to the hone to that end, maintain some sort of discipline, and find out why people are not coming to school. I know at the last CMS school board meeting, I didn't hear an answer to why there's the
Time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next question, given all of these challenges, including teacher shortage and these test scores, tell us what qualifications that you have, what skills do you possess that will directly address these issues to make things better? What skills, what do you have to make sure that things will get better under your leadership? Let's start with Ms. Easley.
Well, the first thing that I have is teacher experience. I've been a teacher in CMS for 10 years. I've talked to other teachers. I've been a leader in Mecklenburg. I've been a leader across the state in advocacy for education, specifically for education. And so I have these relationships already in place on both sides of the aisle and are willing to sit down and work and listen to ideas. Also, relationship building. That's what I do as a teacher. That is the cornerstone to my classroom and any classroom, is that things don't happen if you don't have relationships with your students. So that was something that I had definitely focused on in my many years in the classroom in various schools, all Title I schools, by the way. And so some of these issues that are focusing on our Title I schools, as Mr. Fisher had alluded to, or just schools in general, absolutely, I 100% agree with you that we were not perfect beforehand. But we need to build our culture with our teachers. We need to build those relationships. And who better to do that than an already educator that has already established the fact that they're willing to listen, talk, and communicate.
Thank you. Mr. Fisher, what qualifications and skills do you possess to directly address these issues?
Well, let's start with the tripod of education. Understand as a community leader that there is a tripod of education between the parent, the student, and the teacher, the educator. And so I have been advocating for many years to build this relationship. I believe parents engaging within our school is going to make that culture much better. But then also management experience that I have in many businesses that I've done, running campuses, as well as nonprofit organizations. And so physical transparency, understanding budgeting, understanding policy, which is going to drive our culture to make our school system better. It's going to take time, but there's perseverance and endurance that I have through the past things that I've received, professional development that I've received, that's going to help this out, as well as a plethora of individuals to connect with, to bring in and help us as a board to learn and see as constituents how we can increase our effectiveness in our school system.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fountain.
Thank you. One of the things, I've been a teacher for 10 years, high school and a little bit of middle school, a variety of different subjects, social studies, mathematics, which is a primary, and also economics. And I also did some innovative things as a teacher and bringing in a course in aviation, also a course in aeronautical science and military science. The other thing is about objectives and measurable objectives. That's one of the things I did is I had two major programs that I ran. Both of them were worth about $100 million in today's dollars, where we had measurable objectives. In other words, there was cost, schedule, and a product. And that's something that the CMS really needs. The other thing is, as a Pentagon planner and also as a marketing manager, I worked at some very high level, which you need to have a broad vision within the CMS school board. And that's one of the things I did, like I mentioned, as a defense planner.
Thank you. And Ms. Cheek, what qualifications and skills do you bring to the table to address these issues?
As a former CMS student and a former CMS parent, I bring those skills to the table. Some of the things I've done over the course of my professional and adult life, 2003, I was the North Carolina PTA Volunteer of the Year. I know about parent engagement because I've lived it and I've done it. Since that time, I served on the Citizens Capital Budget Advisory Committee, the Board of Charlotte Advocates for Education, and several other education-based committees to really kind of learn how the operations and how the business of running a district worked before I was ever even elected. Since I've been elected, I've served in the role of the vice chair for a while. I've served as the chairman of the legislative committee, where I honed my relationships with those folks in Raleigh and in their other governmental bodies to lobby for our needs at CMS. So my biggest skills, I would say, are I'm a go-getter. I don't sit around and wait. I build relationships with people. And I truly believe there's really nobody in this world I've ever met that I could not find some little morsel of common ground with that would help me to sit down with them and establish some kind of relationship.
Thank you. Recently, the school board released its goals that it has, especially for third grade reading. The board's goal is to hit 36% for this year's third graders and 50% by the year 2024. This is what Board Chair Elise Dashew said. She said that the stakes are high. Here I quote, "They will achieve at a higher level than even before the pandemic. If we as a board do our job well, and if we don't do our job well, our students will receive an education that is less than what they deserve." I'll say that again. They will achieve at a higher level than even before the pandemic if we do our job as a board well. If we don't do our job well, our students will receive an education that is less than what they deserve. So my question is, do you think that board members should have another opportunity to lead if these goals are not reached? We'll start with Mr. Fisher.
Well, the thing about it is I learned the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and thinking you're going to get a different result. Number one, that 32% to me is too low. What happens to the remainder? Are we only extending ourselves to the 36% because we have so many that have experienced learning loss and we have so many that are without? This has been happening. And so the reality is we need to attend to build a higher goal, because what happens is we understand what happens to a third grader if they cannot read. We see the effects in our community. Matter of fact, I sat with the chief of police and he says a part of violence, which is going on in Charlotte, is because we have so many individuals that cannot read. And when a person cannot read, then they act out violently because they cannot communicate adequately, as well as they don't know how to express themselves. And so 36% is too low. We need to higher our standards. And yes, we do need to make sure that we hit the goals, but I think we're hitting low goals so that we look.
Thank you. Mr. Fountain.
Well, one of the first things is I understand from the CMS board, these are goals. These are not measurable objectives. So I don't think anybody's feet is being held to the fire. The superintendent is not being held to the fire because he's only there for 1 year. And I don't know what kind of flow down you're seeing down to the principals to this. So you can state these things, these are goals. And I agree with Mr. Fisher about this thing being low. But the key thing is they're not measurable. And in the business world where I worked, if I did not meet my profit and if I did not satisfy my customer, I was kicked out. I would be gone. And unfortunately, that's the way we have to do, because they need to have measurable objectives, not nebulous goals. Granted, you're talking about 36% and then 50%, and that's in 2024 when the whole board is out, is essentially out unless they've been reelected. So I think this is just Monday morning.
Ms. Cheek, what say you?
So we have got to do things different. If you tuned in the other night, you would have noticed some of the things that we talked about. We talked about intentional instruction. We talked about using our programs with integrity, but not necessarily fidelity. And that's a little bit of a different stance. What that means is we're telling our leaders, you need to do what you can with that curriculum, follow the curriculum, but adapt it to your classroom. And yes, we are tying these goals to the superintendent. Our learning zone superintendents have these goals. The principals have these goals, and there's been a much more intentional and top-down approach to this to make sure that everybody throughout the organization does understand what the goals are, how we're going to meet them. We're not going to meet them by doing the same thing, but if there truly was a magic bullet to fix academic achievement and close achievement gaps, every school district across the country would be doing it. We need to be leaders and figure out what the magic bullets are here in Mecklenburg County. We saw some tidbits of that the other night from the Berrywick and the Paw Creek and from the Allenbrook data that we looked at and what they were doing differently.
Thank you. Ms. Easley.
So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm happy with those numbers, because absolutely I'm not. But I'm also not going to sit here and say I'm expecting 100%. Because that's just not a possible goal. You know, being in education and being an education expert, you put in incremental goals.
I'm sorry, my internet was a little unstable. So you got an extra about 20, 30 seconds there.
Okay. All right.
Oh, you have 30 more seconds to go.
Oh, I have 30 more seconds. Okay.
No. I was saying that she I gave her an extra 20 or 30 seconds. So her time is up.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Okay, all right, okay. Mr. Fountain, I have a question for you. I know I heard you at the Tuesday morning forum, and you talked about wokeism in your opening statement. And I looked up the word wokeism. Macmillan Dictionary defines it as a disparaging term for attentiveness to claims for equality and representation from minority groups. So if you believe that wokeism needs to stop, tell me, how do you plan to connect and maintain a lack of trust with the Black and Brown families there in your district?
Thank you. I look at it this way, is that it's disguised as a social progress. However, if you look at what's happening to the students or to other people that are involved in this, as I mentioned earlier, is that if you convince a Black or Brown student that because of the past, they are victims, that does rob them of their self-worth. And that is not a condition that you want them to have virtue and purpose. And if you tell them that you're a victim, that creates an anger in them, and then they're also told they're entitled. And that is not fair to that child. That child, they should be given an encouragement, self-reliance, virtue. Those are the type of things that I think are that need to be done versus the opposite thing.
Time.
Does anybody want to rebut? Okay. All right. Okay. Ms. Chief, let me talk to you. You've been a school board member since 2009. Talk to me, what grade would you give yourself when it comes to doing the work of not only District 1 students, but also the Black and Brown community? What grade would you give yourself for the work you've done since 2009, and explain that grade?
I would give myself a B+. I never would give myself an A because I'm too self-critical. I serve I'm elected to represent District 1, but I serve the entire community. So any vote that I've ever made, I have to think about its impact from north, south, east, and west in the center. I visit schools all over the county, and I engage with parents and teachers from all over the county. I have a pretty good inner circle of advisors from those parent and teacher groups to kind of share with me what's going on in schools around the district. And like I said, I've been around the district for such a long time prior to service. The things I do well, I build coalition, I build consensus, I focus on children. The thing that guides me in everything I've done since I was a young adult, even before my time on the board, was just thinking about how will this impact children and what can I do to make things better for children. And so that has kind of guided everything. And we've been through just a gamut of highs and lows over the last 13 years. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint one thing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We know we talked about test scores, but in District 1, be specific and give me some top 3 issues facing your school district, and what are the planned strategy proposals to address them? The 3 big issues facing District 3, and how do you plan to tackle them? We'll start with Ms. Cheek.
I think there's 3 big ones. The one is District 1 is very, very diverse. So we have to make sure that we're covering the needs from the University City over towards the Mountain Island area up towards Davidson. And that means we have to have a good, strong academic program that's being done with intentionality throughout the district. We are seeing a surge in growth. We're seeing students coming back to many of our District 1 schools that have left. And so I'll be very interested to see where that shakes out. And safety is just the other big concern. We want to make sure our schools are safe. I'm really excited at how we have started this school year, the sense of excitement and the sense of joy that I'm seeing in our students compared to what I will say chaos that happened last year. It feels like our students and our staff are ready and used to being back in school and doing the business of education and the business of school now. So I would say safety, academics, and really just kind of figuring out how we're going to accommodate the growth that's coming into our district. Those are the 3 big things that I see for District 1.
Time.
What say you, Ms. Easley?
And before Ms. Easley gets started, I was told that I didn't give Ms. Easley her ample amount of time. That last question, I apologize. It rang up on my end and I think it just froze, but I'm going to give you 20 to 30 more seconds so you can finish your last thought or add it to this one here. I apologize.
No, that's okay. We've moved on from there. We'll just, if anyone would like to figure out and talk to me about it, I'd be happy to do that on a one-on-one basis. I'd, like to keep it moving. So I do want to talk kind of about growth because that is a huge issue here. In District 1, we are on a trajectory to get over 100,000 people just in District 1. About 40% of that are our students that are in lower poverty. We have about 23,000 students that are currently enrolled in District 1 schools. And so it is going to be very, very important for us to keep the growth in mind in order to make sure that everyone is safe, everyone has a safe place to go to school, everyone has a safe community to be in, and things like that. So that's going to really tailor a lot of our decisions is where is the growth going to be? Where is the growth going to be in our schools? How can we give equitable resources and actual resources, not just money, but actual resources to help improve those locations that need it most?
Thank you. Mr. Fisher.
Yes, in speaking with the residents here in District 1 and some elected officials, one thing we see is growth is truly a concern. And so we want to make sure that we're extending opportunities for better schools here in District 1. One thing we looked at is the emotional as well as physical safety of students. And so we want to engage parents to learn about how they suggest long-term as well as short-term, how we can better our school safety in our schools. But then also as a board member, I don't want to politicize what we're doing or hinder a school system from being for schools such as North Mech, which is old and dilapidated. It needs reconstruction. It needs to be revived. And we have students sitting in a school that is old. And so we don't want to politicize that because what happens is our students suffer when the adults are politicizing education. But then also advocacy. We want parents to engage. Parents do not trust our school system. So I want to build a greater bridge of trust for engagement in our schools, which are going to make our schools better. And so we have a couple of different things that we need to address.
Thank you. Mr. Fountain.
Yes, I know with a look at some of the differences between the schools, because you have some very high performing schools and some low performing schools in the District 1. And a lot of obviously the ones that have the low performing are where you have a lot of absenteeism, which brings up the question is why is that happening? And I think one of the elements of that is that are we setting high enough expectations in the way of behavior for our children? And I think that's an important thing that both the principals and I know the teachers themselves would relish the idea of having help in discipline of the children. And really, when I say the word discipline, I really mean is talking about an expectations of being civil with each other, with being able to allow the teachers to teach and to be able to interact with respect between the people within the classroom. I think that wait.
Thank you. The next question, school board members, they set policies. And I wanted to know, what do you think policies need to be in place, or what were your suggestions of some policies that you could bring to the table that will enhance the learning of Black and Brown students? What policies do you think need to be in place? We'll start with Ms. Easley.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that we can do. Once again, my focus is going to be on improving the culture for our educators because it's going to trickle down. So in the education world, we have a saying called Maslow before Bloom. And what it is it talks about the hierarchy of needs and how Maslow did research to show what the basic needs are. This includes love and belonging, food, shelter, safety, all of those things. And so our students cannot achieve high achieving scores or anything like that if their basic needs are not taken care of. So we need to create policies to make sure that all of our students feel safe, feel loved and belonging in our schools, as well as our staff. We have a lot of staff that do not feel safe to be themselves in our school, and that's not okay. And that trickles down to student achievement. So we need to make sure that we have policies to make sure that everyone's basic needs are met. And once the basic needs are met, then we can work on student achievement, and we will trickle down, and it'll compounding as it goes through the years.
Okay, right there. Thank you. Mr. Fisher, specifically, what policies, if a board member that you would bring to the policy committee, or that you think that CMS needs to talk about in order to improve the education in CMS? Talk to me about that.
Well, there are many policies that we need to adopt, but there are two that I think that are going to be very instrumental. One is a policy that's going to hold accountability to the leadership within a school. When we have principals who are not building cultures that are helping the education process, where teachers do not feel supported and students do not feel taken care of, we need to build policies that are going to hold the administration to a better, higher standard and hold them accountable. Where they do wrong, we're not going to put them somewhere else, but we're going to actually hold them accountable. But then another policy that I think is going to be very instrumental is a policy where it's going to assist students in higher education. We need to build policies of vocational and technical training. We talk about career and college readiness. Well, we need to take care of that career readiness, because all students traditionally do not do good in college, but we need to show them different pathways that they can be productive citizens in our schools. And so we need to take care of vocational and open opportunities.
Thank you. Mr. Fountain.
Yes, I think one of the things is that we need to focus on the 3 R's. I think there's not enough attention to that. And if you look at we're having these the surveys, like the panorama surveys. We're having the gender identity. Those things I think should be placed out. I mean, taken out of from a policy wise, out of the picture, because I think that is just another impediment to learning. And the other thing is, I right on with Mr. Fisher about the accountability. That's got to be in there. And that's when accountability, that means actual measurement of where the people have a measurable objectives. And if they don't meet them, they are out. The vocational school is excellent idea, because that is something where when you're in a vocational thing, you're also learning about the language of it, the science about it.
Thank you. Ms. Cheek.
So I would focus first on making sure putting policies in place that will make sure we have highly effective teachers in every classroom. And that is going to mean things like incentive programs to get teachers to leave schools where they are and maybe go to schools that are more challenging, and offer higher pay, offer some flexibility for principals when they're in those schools, to add coaches. What we're seeing right now across the nation is that teachers that are supported with mentors and coaches have higher outcomes for their students. So we need to have a policy in place or some plans in place for mentoring and coaching. And then I would also say that teaching assistants and ways that we can drill down a classroom of 20 or 22 students to work in small groups, that's where we're going to see the biggest gains. So I think those are all academically based, more procedural than probably policy. And then I would also say we need to start the talk of careers. Everyone may not want to go to college, but we need to have career options starting in middle school and in high school for students that do want to even go to college. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you. This past week, we all know that school board meetings can run short and they can run long. There was an important school board meeting this past week, so I just want to ask everybody, when was the last time you attended a school board meeting? When was the last time you attended a school board meeting, Mr. Fountain?
What was Tuesday? It was
okay.
13th.
All right then. All right then. And Ms. Cheek?
I was there Tuesday.
And Ms. Easley? You're muted.
I was virtual Tuesday. I have an immune issue and it was acting up this week, so I was virtually watching.
Gotcha. And Mr. Fisher?
I was not there Tuesday, but I was the one before that because I had a work obligation.
Okay, then, all right, then, thank you. If elected, this school board will hire a new superintendent. And since I have been working at WBTV for the past 18 years, we have had several superintendents. Want to know what is the problem? Some people say, is the board the problem? Is the superintendent the problem? Talk to me about that and what you will be looking for in a new superintendent, a superintendent that will stay around for a while. Let's start with Mr. Fisher.
Well, I always say everything rises and falls on leadership. And so if the school board is in charge of hiring as well as governing the superintendent, it has to fall on leadership. That's the accountability that we have. As we look for a new superintendent, we need to look for someone who has a record of superintending a school district of this size, one who will be able to deal with learning loss. We need to look at his solutions, his or her solutions for learning loss. And then also, how do they work with the community? They need to have a history of working with community so that we can formulate a culture that promotes a healthy work environment, accountability, student-focused learning, high student achievement, and parent and community engagement. There is a different type of student in this modern age, and they need to know how to build a culture that will lead so many, the 18,000 employees of CMS, on how to deal and how to educate and how to care for the current student. And so everything rises and falls on leadership. We can point the finger so many other places, but as a parent that's been here for 16 years, I've seen many superintendents come and go.
Thank you. Mr. Fountain.
Yes, I think one of the things is that if you start focused on, one of the things is you want to make sure that they have had some innovative I guess, decisions that they have made in the past where they're in previous jobs. And if you show that, I think that's going to be something that's very important. Leadership absolutely is going to be important, but also coming in with just like a proposal, a business proposal, you come in with a plan. So I would like to see on the search is to have plans to hit just like what Mr. Fisher says. How are we going to get our students back on the course, get them back up there into a learning level? That is something I think that should be done in part of the search committee. Also in making sure this is transparent, make sure that everybody has a good view of what these different candidates are going to have. And even to the fact of maybe even speaking at the CMS school board meetings.
Thank you. Ms. Cheek.
I think the first thing we need is somebody with just absolute integrity. They have to have integrity. Second, and that's going to guide everything below it. They have to be visionary. They have to be somebody that has shown that they can do the job. Maybe not in a district our size, because once you're in the top 20 districts, there's just not as many other folks to choose from. But we need to have somebody that has shown visionary leadership in working with a school district like this that is mixed, is urban, suburban mixed. And we need to have somebody that has some experience with that. We need to have somebody that is politically savvy and knows how to work with multiple stakeholder groups. I don't mean in politics, I mean politically savvy to know how to deal with stakeholder groups like constituents, business leaders, parent groups, all the different groups. They have to have a good communication skills, but just a sense of savvy. But the most important thing is we need somebody that is smart enough to hire the top people in each of those specialty areas, so that they are not necessarily the top person in that area, but they hired the best people in academics and operations and finance and all those areas, and they let them do their best work. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Easley. You're muted.
I think the biggest thing that we need to look for is, once again, someone that is visionary, willing to think outside the box, that has experience, working with teachers. You're going to work with the teacher differently than you're going to work with a student or a parent. And so somebody that has that experience, somebody that's willing to sit down and have those conversations, and someone that, like Ms. Cheek said, I'm not an expert in everything. Nobody is. So let's bring in other people and other resources to help advise and help work together. This is not an us versus them anymore. We can't do it that way. We have to work together. We have to sit down, and that includes superintendents, bringing in the best people, us asking questions, us progress monitoring throughout the year, not just once, not just twice, but sit down and having those conversations on a more frequent basis to make sure that we are still heading in the right direction, so that, come December, we start in August, come December, we're like, wait a minute, hold on a second, what's going on here? We should be in the know all the way along. And so somebody that wants to work with the board.
All right, then, thank you. We're going to wrap up. Thank you so much, candidates. We will start your 90 seconds closing statements, and we will start with Mr. Fountain.
Oh, right. Well, thank you. First, I want to make sure that you understand that I've been in the trenches as a middle school and a high school teacher in math, social studies, and science. Secondly, I've successfully managed 2 $100 million programs that were dealing with budgets and measurable objectives, where I mentioned earlier where my VP would hold me accountable for customer satisfaction. Third, I've had the privilege of building teams at high levels as a Pentagon planner, and also which involved speaking at and briefing congressional staffers and members of the Defense Department officials. Also, later in the business world, I did the same thing in marketing, visiting several countries, advising military and government leaders, including in Europe, Asia, Africa, Middle East, and South America. And that's how to there improve their defense capabilities. But the bottom line of all this is that the woke culture of our schools is like a cancer that is metastasizing. It has left our children confused and unbalanced. Right is now wrong. Remember what Einstein said, as was wisely said earlier, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Parents, students, and teachers deserve better. I'm the best candidate in District 1. I'm the only one willing to tackle or challenge wokeism. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Let's go to Mr. Fisher.
Thank you so much. Again, I have lived in Huntersville for 16 years, but I pastored in the West Charlotte area. And what was alarming to me was the difference in equity of the education in the same system. There are so many socioeconomic opportunities as well as diversity here in District 1. And one thing I learned about equity is it's kind of like the baseline of education. We have to present so many different things so everybody can get that baseline of education. Nobody needs to get left behind. I have been a community advocate. I've sat on many boards with county government and city government, as well as I've advocated and been a servant in this community. I came to this community to be a servant. I realized that I have to up that servantship, and I desire to be the District 1 representative for Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. I have seen the disparities in partnerships and community involvement, and I want to take that away and make sure that we can take a village to educate our children. So I ask for you to vote for me and be a change agent with me so we don't have the same things that we've seen for the past many years. But there's a new horizon. We did not get here overnight. This is a marathon. It's going to take a process, but it's going to take individuals that can work collaboratively together to increase it and keep our children first, and not the politics of what it takes to physically manage this system. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I appreciate you. Please vote for me, Amani Fisher, for CMS District 1.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to Ms. Easley.
Well, I just want to bring out the point that I'm a parent in the system and I see from the parent side, but I've been in the system. I've seen the policies that the boards have made. I've been to the boards speaking. I've been to Raleigh speaking on behalf of our educators. I have those relationships. I know what it's like to walk into a classroom and have it rain in your classroom. I know what it's like to be so exerted that you don't know how to help anybody. And so I want to be that voice for educators that I feel like has been lacking in a lot of the boards, and bringing in educators who are the front lines, who are our experts, who are the ones that are actually doing the work in order to be that change, let's have the experts drive us into the change into the future. And that's what we should be doing. And that's what we should be collaborating with. Also, bringing the community in. We made a couple years ago, there was a big push to get rid of community level schools, and the community in general was against it. Okay, why? If we're not going to bring our communities into our school and help our students then why did we fight to keep our schools in our communities? So this is no longer, it seems like the last couple of years, it's been a lot of us versus them, or this group is going to work independently, and that can't happen anymore. What can't happen is individual working together. In order to move this, in order to move the district forward, we need to work together. The superintendent, the community, the board, our staff, our students, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Easley. And we'll end District 1 with Ms. Cheek.
I would like to return to the board to continue the service that I've given to District 1 and to the entire community. I may not have ever taught in a classroom. I may not have ever led a school, but I have been involved in so many levels of what goes on in education for almost 2 decades now, actually probably longer than that. It takes somebody that understands the inner workings, how budgets work, how the capital programs work. It takes somebody that knows where the roads are and has driven on all those roads. It takes somebody that has been part of our schools on different levels. Being on the school board is not advocacy anymore. You become a member of a governance team, and the word team doesn't have the I in it. So when I am on that governance team, I'm working collaboratively with my colleagues, even those that I have very little politically in common with. But the one thing we all have in common is our caring about children, and that we care about them improving academically. I've built teams, I've built coalitions, I have made those 5 votes happen that have benefited our kids. Most recently, that was one of my votes that was the big one, was making sure that we did not stop all of our sports in January 2021. We went on to have several state championships as a result of that. So it takes somebody that knows how to count to 5, how to work with other people, how to advocate, but within the walls of governance. And I look forward to continue to serving until for the next 3 years on District 1. It's been my honor and my privilege to do that for the last 13 years, and I look forward to continuing. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you, District 1 candidates. Thank you so much. We will take a short break, and then we will bring on our District 2 candidates. Thank you.
Mr. Russell, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I had entered a number of questions for some of the District 1 candidates, and I had asked initially if questions would be taken, and I was told to answer my questions.
Okay.
So
I had entered a number of them in the chat.
And so thank you for entering those questions in the chat. They were screened and submitted to Mr. Russell. I believe he was checking both and answering some of those questions. Please note that although you are placing your questions in the chat, we cannot possibly answer all questions this evening, but we do appreciate your participation in this process.
Opening statement is 90 or 60.
Opening statement is 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay.
Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you. Don't get too wrapped up in someone else's style. made a change in a while. You gotta find what you're all about and know just who you are without a doubt. Everyone's a star, and your gift you must find in time to take you far. Yeah, yeah. The whole world's a stage, and no one else can play your part. Ooh, that's why I say, yeah, yeah, yeah. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you but you. Oh, nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you. You better look out and try to hold you down and make your ideas seem less than profound. You better look out and try to make you seem you ain't got the move to make the groove and make it mean you know it. You better look out to make you feel like you ain't for real. You don't know the deal. You better look out to try to change your mind, tell you you ain't mine, baby, and that ain't for real. Come on, baby. Now look here. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody, no. All this negative got to go. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you. You got to move your behind. If you're gonna catch up, you got to use your mind. If you wanna go to the top, baby, you gotta do what you do best. I don't mean maybe. Take your piece on the road. Make yourself stand up for what you got. Ooh, straight ahead. Don't let yourself stand in your way. That's what I said. Yeah. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you but you. Nobody can be you. You better look out to try to stop your hold on your pot of gold. You better look out and try to make it feel like your way out. You ain't got no clout. You better look out. They'll tell you anything and make you feel pretty lame, but you know all about that game. You better look out. TV on me, I got my own mind to bring my mean.
At this time, we will transition into our District 2 forum. Mr. Russell, I will turn the forum back over to you.
Thank you, President. As we then get started on District 2, we will have 2 minutes for opening statements, and we will begin with Thelma Byers-Bailey.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am delighted to be here this evening. I am Thelma Byers-Bailey. I currently serve on the school board. This is my 9th year. I'm seeking an election to a third term on the school board. I have been on I came on the school board with a focus on facility issues. I'm president of the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Association. The board had decided to close our school, and I felt that was not a good decision for our community. And I have been focused on schools facilities ever since I've been on the board, and I have made a significant impact on the decisions that the board has made regarding facilities, specifically regarding West Charlotte High School, which is my alma mater. I made a difference in the bond referendum regarding that school. I added Bronze Avenue, which is another school in my district. But more than that, I have also focused on other things regarding facilities, because we have some of our schools are historic buildings, and they have some history behind them that needs to be recognized. And I have made a difference in regarding two of those facilities, not being sold for commercial value at the highest dollar, but rather preserving their historic value. But more than that, regarding our students, I was very instrumental in the board changing direction on how we govern. I attend a lot of conferences to learn how to do school boards and how to do school and how to what it takes to educate students. And I brought back to our board the idea of changing the way we govern by focusing on what students know and are able to do. And my board embraced that thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Monty Witherspoon. I'm a native of Charlotte and a product of Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. I'm a 1998 graduate of Olympic High School. I'm married with 2 children. Why am I running for School Board District 2? Well, according to North Carolina DPI report, there are 12 low-performing schools in District 2. We've increased the number of low-performing schools in CMS has increased from 42 up to 50. So 12 of those schools are in District 2. There are 13 recurring low-performing schools in District 2, which means that they have been identified. They were identified as low-performing 2 out of the past 3 years. And so while we have seen drastic improvements in schools on that list, such as Allenbrook and Tuckasegee, the remaining schools are rated D and F by the state. 7 are rated F and 4 are rated D. What we need is clear, resolute leadership that can provide clear strategic plans on how to move these schools forward. What makes me different? Why am I running? I will be laser focused on student achievement, providing every student with a quality education, regardless of what zip code they live in. Number 2, safe learning environments, developing strategies to create safe learning environments for every student. Also support for teachers, working towards providing conditions and staffing structures that promote effective teaching and professional growth. Next, which is very important to me, is building strong community coalitions, partnering with community stakeholders and the community at large and community service providers to meet student needs. And finally, and also very important, is system-wide accountability and transparency, building trust through openness with regard to board business and decisions. Transparency meaning being truthful about where we are while we're not there, and what steps exactly we're going to take in order to get there. So my name is Monty Witherspoon, and I'm a candidate for School Board District 2. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Wanreek Hall, did I pronounce your name correctly, Wanreek? You're muted, sir.
Yes, you pronounced it correctly.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Wanreek Hall. In the corridor, they call me Coach or Juan. I've been working with kids for the last 15 years. I'm a youth advocate worker. I work with the Alternative to Violence program here in Charlotte, North Carolina in the Beatties-Ford Road corridor. I've been a volunteer coach over at West Charlotte High School for the last 10 years. I'm a graduate of West Charlotte High School. And the reason why I'm running for CMS School Board District 2 is simply see that the kids in the district, such as Philip O'Berry, West Charlotte, Hardin, Philip O'Berry, West Charlotte, Hardin, and West Meck, they're needing the basic resources at home to be able to produce at school. And I know how to identify with the kids. I'm a troubled kid myself, but I changed my life to make it better. So I know how to identify with the kids. I know how to bring a unique learning style for our kids that a lot of people wouldn't know. So that's the reason why I'm running for CMS School Board District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Let's get right to these test scores. 36.6% Black students proficient, 20.7% are college and career ready. Latino students, 36.6% proficient, 21.9% college and career ready, 45% of CMS schools D or F. Tell me, this academic achievement has been around for a long time. Talk to me, what is wrong? What is happening and what needs to change? We've heard leadership, we heard socially, but we've heard all of that. If you are elected to the school board, what change will you bring to change these outcomes? Let's start with Dr. Witherspoon.
Sure. First, I think we have to realize that at the state level, that the state is not compliant with Leandro, number one, and there's been a severe underfunding since 2008. And I think that, according to West Ed, that underfunding has contributed to the widening student achievement gap. I think what needs to be done, what we could do on a local level as far as a school board, simply is this: we don't have to recreate anything. We simply can implement state mandated programs that are already in place. There's an MTSS program, there's an intervention program. And I think what we should be able to do is to determine how many students are eligible for that intervention plan and get them on plan. One of the problems has been talked about, one of the concerns is how much it was going to cost. Well, now CMS has $360 million unallocated federal COVID relief dollars that they must spend. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
I think first thing is we need to have a zero tolerance when it comes to behavior in the classrooms. We need to get behind our teachers and really advocate for them when something is going wrong and really make them understand that they're the first priority. And number two, we need to get the basic needs for the kids at home some kind of way, because the teachers are doing a great job at school. What the problem comes in is when they get home, they have simple internet. They don't have food some of the time. Sometimes they go home to a house where there are no lights or water. So those are issues we need to address and things to get better.
Thank you. Ms. Thelma Byers-Bailey.
Thank you. When we brought forth the student outcome focused governance approach to governing our school board, what we learned was what things won't change until adult behaviors change. And the board was the first organizational part of CMS where we needed to change our adult behaviors. That's why we held ourselves accountable to this governance model first. And then we passed it down through the administration. This fall will be the first time the school student faculty will be held accountable to the same standards that we have been measuring the student outcomes up to now. Now, even though they didn't get to the schoolhouse and into the student governance program in the schools, the faculty has already been putting this together for the last time, which is why we had such marvelous reports.
Thank you. This is a question from the audience. Do you feel the North Carolina General Assembly should honor Appellate Court Judge Lee's 2020 order in the 28-year-long Leandro court case that you just brought up to fully fund North Carolina public schools? If so, what will you do as a Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Board member to advocate for this outcome? We'll start with Mr. Hall.
Yes, I agree. And basically what I'll do is try to get with parents, students, and faculty and get them behind to let them know that this is something that we really need and advocate for.
Ms. Thelma Byers-Bailey.
Thank you. As a member of the school board, I also sit as vice chair, which means that puts me in a leadership position. And in addition to that, I am also been elected to serve 2 terms on the North Carolina School Boards Association's Board of Directors. And as part of that representation, I am also sitting on the legislative committee of that body. So I am in a unique position, be able to put forth my opinion and CMS's opinion regarding implementation of the Leandro opportunity for money to come to the schools so that we can fully fund all the positions that we need, we know we need, in order to help these students succeed. Every time we put together a budget, we always end up not getting all the money we need, and we end up not being able to get all of the social workers, the counselors, and the psychologists that we need in order for our students to get served.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon.
Sure. Social workers, all the wraparound services are great and they're much needed. And I fully support the 1997 Leandro decision because we need the funding. And I think it's so very important. I think that it does, it will allow us to do several things. One, it would allow high quality teachers to be in every classroom. Not only that, but every school will be staffed with a well-trained principal. And also what it allow us to do is to identify resources, or have resources necessary to ensure that all children have equal opportunity to obtain a sound basic education. All Leandro was saying is that every child, it's a constitutional right. The North Carolina Constitution guarantees every child a right to a quality education or a sound basic education. And that's defined clearly from that space.
This week, the school board listed some goals on how to increase academic achievement when it comes to third grade English language arts. And in this document, it said items needed from the board. This is CMS school board staff asked 3 things of the board to support our pursuit of this third grade goal. Encourage timely student enrollment in school. Let them show up to school. Advocate for programs and messaging in the community that encourage student attendance. Advocate with the North Carolina DPI staff and state legislators for the removal of human resource barriers. Let me know, if you are elected, how will you do that? How will you get those items needed? Encourage timely student enrollment, encourage student attendance, and advocate from NCDPI to remove human resources barriers to CMS's ability to staff CMS schools with skilled teachers. Let's start with Thelma Byers-Bailey.
That's a lot of advocacy, and I'm up to the task. I am, as part of the members of the board of directors of the North Carolina School Boards Association, a board. I am in a position to lobby for all of the things that you said in terms of what we need from the legislator. I'm also in position to lobby the DPI for the things that we need from them. We need high quality teachers in every classroom. We need high quality principals in every school. We can grow our principals, we can educate them, we can give them all of the training and leadership skills that we can teach. But there are principals out there that we could hire if we put more money on the table, and that we had that money from Leandro, we could do that. We have hired teachers and principals from out of state to come into our high needs school, and they have done a marvelous job.
Hi.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon, how will you advocate to get all of this done?
Number one, let's talk about getting students enrolled on time. Let's be very clear and honest. CMS, just as much as achievement gap, CMS has a communication gap between the system, parents, students, and the community. And we need to close that gap. You need effective leadership who is able to communicate, work, and build coalitions with the community, being able to get information out to students and parents all across the district. Second, I believe you need to cut the red tape without diminishing high standards for all of the employees. There are folks that I know that have just been delayed trying to get in to CMS, whether it's substitutes, whether it's teachers. I had somebody tell me just the other day that wanted to teach how long and how bureaucratic that process is and how laborsome. Got to cut the red tape without diminishing the high standards.
Yeah. Mr. Hall, how will you advocate to get all of this done?
Well, first of all, you were saying about the third grade read level. I think that we need to start with the pre-K. A better, the pre-K system is good, but it could get better. And as for, like you say, the hiring process, it's really, really, really hard. You sit around and you wait a long time because it's a lot of people that's still waiting for jobs that's not getting them. And really, we just need to advocate for all the kids. We need wraparound services. We need to be able to go out and speak with the parents in the households and see what their needs are.
Thank you. Recently, Interim Superintendent Hadaba said improving attendance is one key to helping children learn to read. And they said that this year there will be state mandated warning letters sent as students approach 10-day absences. And after that, we'll follow the state statutes and we'll be addressing it in the district's attorney's office. With that said, do you think parents of Black and brown students, of all students, should face criminal charges if their children miss school? Let's start with Dr. Witherspoon.
Well, I mean, obviously, truancy is huge, but we know exactly what proportion of our population that's going to fall on. It's going to fall on Black and brown parents. And so if you're going to have parents tied up in court or face some severe penalty, it's just going to just further exacerbate existing problems within our community. I think there are better ways to engage parents. We need more parent engagement. We've not done a good job of this. And I think that's where building community coalitions is going to come into play. This board is going to have to be much different than any other board. This is not just going to meetings and doing the other things that and the meetings upon meetings that they have to do. But this next board is going to have to be engaged in the community, building partnerships, closing communication gaps with various segments of our population. I know we talk about who has internet. It's going to have to be boots on the ground. And I think that's going to be huge. Thank you.
Mr. Hall.
I am for holding parents accountable totally, because with the work that I do and the things that I see from a daily basis, if you hold parents accountable and they're knowing that their livelihood is going to be affected, trust me, they get their kids to school every day. I have, in the work that I do, I have seen a lot of kids go to the cemetery simply because their parents weren't held accountable for the things they have done. So I am an advocate for holding the parents' feet to the fire so that kids can understand that we got to make the abnormal not normal. We got to make the normal normal again and stop making the abnormal normal, because we live in this society that the abnormal is normal.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey.
That's one of the problems that we have in not having enough social workers. When we have social workers that when the student doesn't show up for the third time, the social worker is on the doorstep wanting to know what's the problem. Is the child is there anyone in the home that is supervising the child at the time that they're supposed to be out at the bus stop to go to school? Or is there, what is the finding out from the family, what do they need to be able to get that child to school every day? If a third grader is not in school, it's not the child's fault. It's the parent, the people who are in that child's life that are not fulfilling their responsibility. And if they need some help, then we need to get them the help that they need. It's not about accusation. It's about ministering to the family. And the social workers that we are not able to hire because we don't have enough money from Leandro and other sources are the boots on the ground that we need to go knock on the door to find out what is holding that child.
Thank you. Let's stay with parent engagement. We have a question from the audience. There are parents who, due to socioeconomic challenges, are not able to actively participate in parent-teacher organizations. In fact, we all know that some schools, especially in District 2, don't have PTAs. So how will you reach and interact with these parents to hear their concerns and suggestions? And we hear, come up with a group and stuff like that, but specifically, how will you reach and interact with these parents to hear their concerns and suggestions to make things better? We're going to start with Mr. Hall.
Well, basically, I say this here. Like I say, with the work that I do and the people that I deal with every day, we all have excuses, but I say, if I'm going to deal with the parents, I give them a 30-day notice that this is what we're going to do. So they have 30 days prior to that to make concessions for this moment in their child's life. Because if you love your child and you want your child to have better in life, you can sacrifice one day out the month to show that child that you care, and the teacher, and show the teacher that you care, and you're there for that child. And the gap between the teacher and the kid and the communication and the school will be so much better. So whether you have a PTO or not, you still can make one day out of the month to take time out for your child.
Ms. Byers-Bailey.
Thank you. One of the things that I have done is when I learned about an organization in our community called the Westside Education Think Tank, I jumped right in on it and I became a founding member of that organization because that organization focused on parents and parent engagement. And we've been very successful in doing parent outreach, touching the families, finding out what the issues are, and seeing if we can't just one-on-one work out, well, if you've got this problem, what resources do you have to address that? And if you don't have any resources, let us put you in touch with someone who can help you. Parent engagement is everything. The parent is one of the first teachers a child has. And if we can help the parent be more successful in engaging with their education and making sure that the parent understands how important it is for the child to be in school and have all of the foundational needs that they meet.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between parent engagement and parent involvement. Not all parents have time to be involved in the school, but every single parent can be engaged with their child, such as making sure that the child is out the door and at school. Also, make sure the child goes to sleep at a decent hour and gets the rest that they need to be able to function the next day. So every parent can be engaged. I'm a product of a single parent home. My mother could not be involved in all of these organizations because she had to work, but she was very much engaged in my academic pursuits.
Thank you. Thelma Byers-Bailey, you've been on the board for several years. As I asked Ms. Cheek, what grade would you give yourself as it relates to the achievement of Black and Brown students and your work on the CMS school board? What grade would you give yourself and why?
Well, I think I started off with a solid C. And my grade has improved over the years. As I go to more conferences statewide and across the country, I have learned more. And I bring more ideas back to CMS, and I change the way I think in terms of what I think our students need and how best to educate them. And that was why I was so very excited about the student outcomes focused governance when I heard about it. And I was excited to bring it back to CMS, and our board adopted it immediately and has gone through the training so we can learn how to change our behavior so that that can flow down through the administration into the courthouse and into the classroom.
Thank you. School pride and curb appeal of our schools. Some people say that's important. Some people may think differently. But how do you plan to improve the school pride and curb appeal of our schools? We'll start with Dr. Witherspoon.
School pride and curb appeal. Well, I think that's it's important. I think that the schools should be one of the best looking buildings in our communities, but more so, I think it's also important, just as important, or perhaps more, to make sure that we have facilities that support instruction, facilities that support health and safety of all students, and also structures that support and accommodate future growth. So I think that is important, but also are these schools able to support instruction in the classroom? Are they built for the resources? Are they built for the technological advancements that they need in order to support student achievement?
Thank you. Mr. Hall, what do you say about curb appeal and school pride?
Well, I believe maroon and gold. I'm a lion. I believe maroon and gold, and it's a blessing to see the new building that Ms. Byers had influence in getting. And when those kids seen that building, it brought a chill factor over. So school pride is everything in curb appeal. I mean, if you have a beautiful building and a place to come to every day, kids get real excited about learning. It's just like you going to the barbershop and getting a haircut and make you feel good about yourself when you got school pride and curb appeal, and the teachers inside the school, they love it, and it brings a better enrichment program, and makes the kids, like I say, it brings chills over the kids when everything is going right for them. They have something to celebrate.
Ms. Byers Bailey.
Well, I think we're all in agreement on the fact that school pride is important. I respond to emails and phone calls on a daily basis talking about they didn't cut the grass in front of my school, and I get calls not just from District 2. I get calls from all over the county, talking about, well, somebody defaced the building and nobody has done anything about it. The water fountains aren't working, the bathrooms not working, the trailers don't, the air conditioning doesn't work. All of that is important. And when I get calls about that, I jump right on it, because that's important for students to walk into a school. That's like, that's another way of making them feel that we care about them, that we feel that they deserve the very best. And when the student feels that way, then they have a pride about themselves, and they want to do better, and they want to learn more. And so I think that's very important, and I take it seriously.
Thank you. Thank you. Here's a question from the audience, and this is question open up to anybody who wants to answer. The question is, are any of the candidates familiar with the community school model, creating community learning centers with necessary wraparound services on site to ensure every student can show up ready to learn with these basic needs met? There are community learning centers in other cities thriving and in high demand in what were formerly failing schools. Who would like to comment on that?
I'll speak.
Both of us. That idea was brought to CMS out of the Westside Education think tank, now called a community think tank. And I am highly in support of that. I have advocated for that program with both the superintendent, as well as I've identified a couple of learning community superintendents, and we have gone through the process of identifying what some of the schools that we would like to pilot that program in. So I am very familiar with it, and I think it's another way, a very important way of getting the community involved. I have often advocated that you need, children don't just learn from parents, and they don't just learn from school. They need to hear the same ideas and goals put before them from the churches, from the community, from every institution that they are totally involved with. If the adults in their, okay, I'll stop.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon.
No, I second that. And also I've seen this model work effectively in New York City schools. It's been very effective. And not only that, but I think that community-driven model works. It'll be very successful in our community and in our school system, because the folks that live around that send their schools, their students to these schools, really know the needs, and they're very well aware. And I think that'll be a wonderful model to implement into Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools.
Yeah, what would it take to make that happen in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools? Go ahead, Mr. Hall. You go ahead, Mr. Hall.
Well, basically, the group that I work with, the Youth Advocate Program, Actually, we are in CMS and West Charlotte, Hopewell, and I think North Macon, one of our schools. And what we have been in the schools and helping with the kids and with the wraparound services. And there at West Charlotte, we actually had a room where we put in certain things that the girls might need, the boys might need, toiletries and all of that. And we work hand in hand with the community to see what the kids need. We helped 3 kids to get to college this year. 2 of them from West Charlotte and 1 from Harding. So I'm not familiar with the one with CMS, but I think the one that we work with YAP and the advocacy program, it runs hand in hand with it.
Thank you. Next question, policies. CMS school board members do develop policies. How can you, as a member of the Board of Education, establish policies that will enhance, inform, and prepare our teachers and administrators to effectively interact with and educate our Black students in a more culturally relevant manner? We'll start with Dr. Witherspoon.
Could you repeat it one more time, the question?
Yeah, how can, if elected as a school board member, how would you establish policies that will enhance, inform, and prepare our teachers and administrators to effectively interact and educate our Black students in a more culturally relevant manner?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that culturally relevant teaching is very important. Teaching not from redacted history, but from facts, and including all voices, all identities, all cultures in our curriculum. And I think that's so very important. I remember when I was in school that I didn't see myself on my story or a portion of the story in the curriculum. So I think it's so very important that we have very culturally relevant, that's inclusive of all people.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
Number 1, 0 tolerance when it come down to behavior and disrespect to teachers. Number 2, a caring environment. And number 3, a system that we can test our kids and identify the problems they may have, whether it's dyslexia or anything they might have, or kids might need the IEP. And so we can establish a curriculum that best fits their child so they can develop in the proper way.
Thank you. Ms. Byers-Bailey.
Thank you. Policies are very important. When the board generates policies, that gives the staff an idea of what they can do and what they can't do in terms of trying to manage the classroom, manage the schoolhouse, and manage these students. One of the things that the community had come to CMS for was they wanted an equity committee, and that goes before the policy committee as to whether or not to establish it. I was on the policy committee at that time, and we debated on how to form it and who should be on it and how we would manage it for about 6 months. And then it came before the board as to whether or not we were going to institute it or not. And the policy committee had said, we need more time to work on it. And I didn't feel that that was appropriate. So when it came to a vote, I was the deciding vote to no, we would go ahead and let the policy committee be instituted.
Time.
And we developed it and it worked.
Thank you. The next question, what measures are being taken to assure that our new learning community superintendents will be effective in their roles, given that many are new to their respective geographic areas? What measures are being taken to assure that our new learning community superintendents will be effective in their roles, given that many are new to their respective geographic areas? Let's start with Mr. Hall.
I really don't even know how to answer that question, sir. Being honest with you, I really don't know.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Byers-Bailey.
Well, our learning community superintendents may not be familiar with any particular community, but they've been meeting together for a long time. And so even though they're not assigned a particular community, they have been listening to the leading community superintendents that cover those other geographic areas. So when they move around, I know one has moved from the Harding community area to up to the West Charlotte. She's not having a problem. They talk to each other when as they're passing in their roles. She will talk to the community superintendent that's leaving that area to find out, get the 411 on what's going on. And the same thing with the others as they switch around. It's not as though they go from, Alaska to South Carolina. All of the learning community superintendents communicate with one another. They meet regularly. So it's not that big a deal.
What say you, Dr. Witherspoon?
I think it was mentioned that the learning superintendents had not been evaluated in 2 years, and I think that's so important, and I think that's a problem also. But it's also important, and I'm not saying that from a punitive standpoint, but one in which if they evaluate it to make sure that they're being effective and that they have the tool set that they need in order to lead these learning communities in very critical ways.
Yeah, thank you. The superintendent, if elected, you will have a hand in selecting the new superintendent. And just want to ask you, the last superintendent, we know what happened with that. Do you think that the last superintendent was treated differently than previous superintendents, or do you think that everything went down like he thought it was going to? Let's start with Dr. Witherspoon.
Well, I had concerns initially from the beginning, and I really I lament over what happened because I am a Black man. But you could almost anticipate that it would end in the way that it did, and I'm just being honest about that. And I hope that not only I hope that the community has learned valuable lessons, and I think that's why we need a new board, and that's why I'm running, should I say, because we need effective leadership, and especially I think it's going to be so very important that we make the right decision on the next superintendent, and that we're around to be accountable for that decision, because just what we do now is going to affect the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Mr. Hall, what say you?
I think that he was overwhelmed. I think he was up against a lot. I mean, with the situation that he was in, it's a lot of decisions that he couldn't make himself. He needed help making them, and like what I did just a few minutes ago, sometimes a person just can't say they know something and they try to do their best and they fail at it. So, I mean, I think that he should have just said that he wasn't up for the task.
What say you, Ms. Thelma Byers-Bailey?
Well, I was not pleased with the way it turned out. And I think I expressed my displeasure on the night we made the decision. I think in the future, looking forward in the future, we as a board need to get more community input as to what the community and what the parents and the faculty are looking for in the superintendent. And we plan to do that before we even start the search. We're going to do the community input first, so that we have very clear goals and guidelines from the constituents as to what they want in a superintendent.
Yeah, thank you. Last question. What sets you apart from the other people who are running against you? What sets you apart from the other candidates who are running against you? We'll start with Dr. Witherspoon.
One, I think, I believe, and I will be laser focused on student achievement. And I don't think that's necessarily been the case. Secondly, I am African-American male who's been through CMS. Not only that, I failed 3rd and 7th grade. graduated on time, went to college, took remedial math and English. And today I have a doctorate, so all students can learn. And what I'm saying, what reason I bring out that perspective matters. If Black kids, particularly males, at the bottom of achievement, you need someone who not only that can speak exactly, that has the right perspective, be able to speak. Everybody can speak to it and about it, but no others can speak from that social location. I'm not talking about the other brother, because there's another brother here who knows full well. But this current composition of the board, they can speak to it, they can speak about it, but they cannot speak from that social location of else. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, what sets you apart from your other candidates?
The things that set me apart from the candidates are, number one, I can identify with the people that I'm trying to help. I went to West Charlotte High School. I work in the corridor. I know how to speak to the kids. I don't talk to them. I talk at them. I make them understand where they're coming from. I understand the traumas they have been through. I come from a broken home. My mother left when I was in the third grade, but I make them understand that that does not define who you are. I did a couple of wrong things in my life. I let them know that, and I show them that my past don't make me whom I am. I'm an aeronautical engineer now. I took vocational classes in school that now that I'm a diesel mechanic, and I let them know that I don't ever choose a side, choose a direction, because sometimes in life, the direction you're going, you can change it.
Thank you. Ms. Thelma Byers-Bailey.
Thank you. Where we are now is not where we're going to be. We have put in place the things that we need to move these students forward. And so what I want to do is make sure that the courses that I have taken, the conferences I have attended, all have put me in a position to be able to put all of that together and make CMS the stellar school that every student needs to be able to be successful. And that's what I want, why I want to stay on the school board, to make sure that everything that I have learned is put in place so that these students get the benefit of all of that.
Thank you so much. We will now begin with your 90-second closing statement, and we will begin with Mr. Hall.
Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to say it's been a pleasure listening to Mr. Witherspoon. I finally got to meet him. Miss Bailey, you're a beautiful person. It's so much I can say about our beautiful Black queens out here, but tonight you showed me a lot. And basically, I'm here to help our kids in the corridor. I would love to see our Black and brown kids get exactly what they need. So we need to get vocational things, trades in the classes, so they're not going to college, they can leave the school with a certificate, so they can go be a productive person in the community, and basically, just make a change so that we can get our reading scores up, and everybody on the school board work together.
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon.
Everything that we talked about tonight is not just a CMS problem. It is a problem for the whole community. And I will work effectively, and I believe efficiently, to build coalitions from the business community, grassroots, neighborhood associations and communities, folks that work with community organizations to ensure the success of all our students. Student achievement, safe learning environments, support for our teachers, strong community coalitions, system-wide accountability and transparency. And finally, I think it's a tragedy, and I'm speaking from this position, that we have not had Black male representation on the school board in over 13 years. That's the last time a Black man was elected to the school board. And you've only had 7 in the history of Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. And I think that that perspective is critically important where we go in the future. I'm Monty Witherspoon. I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thelma Byers-Bailey.
Thank you. I applaud what Dr. Witherspoon has just said. I do believe the school board needs a Black male on the board. Not in my position, not in district, representing District 2 particularly, but I would relish to have a Black male on the school board. I think that that brings a whole complete perspective of what the school board needs in order to go forward to be the best that we can be for our students. I'm Thelma Byers Bailey. I represented District 2 for 9 years. I look forward to representing them for 3 more at least, because I think I have earned the respect of the board. I've earned the respect of educators in the state, and I have learned from educators all over the country as to what we need to make this school the best that it can be. And I have brought those ideas back to CMS, and we are putting them into place, and I want to see them blossom to their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, candidates of District 2, for your time and expressing your concern. Thank you so much. We'll be right back after a short break with our last candidate, candidate 3, District 3. Thank you. Okay. All right. We can start with District 3 candidate, Mr. D. Rankin. Just Mr. D. Rankin, start with your 2-minute opening statement, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dedrick. I appreciate it. Thank you to the African American Caucus. Thank you to its members. Thank you to the public for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon, this evening. My name is D. Rankin, and I am a candidate for District 3 Board of Education. Just to give you a quick background, I'm a native Charlottean. I did attend Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. I actually have 3 daughters that all have 1 graduate, 2 that attend currently in CMS schools at Hopewell High School. I'm a former teacher from CMS, a former high school math and science teacher. I've been in the nonprofit sector for the last 15 years, serving youth throughout the city. And I'm no stranger to being an education advocate over the last few years. I started my advocacy working in the nonprofit sector, working in the DJJ program, serving youth in the community that have been involved in DJJ, but also providing leadership and life skill development for youth throughout CMS through my nonprofit Future Leaders. I've served the community on several different community organizations. I was the former chair of the Mayor's Mentoring Alliance that provides mentorship and leadership for nonprofit organizations that's focused on mentoring. I've also served as a chair of the Black Political Caucus Education Committee for the last, I think it was for about 5 years. I was on the Education Committee for the Black Political Caucus, leading, once again, being an education advocate. I've also served currently on the CMS Equity Committee. I was appointed by Dr. Ruby Jones to serve on that committee. And I'm also an engaged and involved parent. I was even being a part of the Dads on Duty program up at Hopewell High School. So I'm not a stranger to education, and I just appreciate the time to be with you this afternoon. So thank you.
Thank you. I guess it's just a one-on-one, me and you having a conversation there, Mr. Rankin. Talk to me about, given the challenges at the school system, and you're well aware of all the challenges, teaching and staff shortages, facility conditions, resources, and the vast disparity in student performance. Talk to us about the qualifications and skills that you bring to the table to make things better for our Black and Brown students.
Well, you've heard about my experience as being an education advocate, but some of the skill sets and characteristics I think I can bring to the board would be, I'm a systems thinker. I know that it takes multiple disciplines that are involved to identify solutions for our students and for our educators. I'm policy driven. I believe in creating effective policy. I'm data and detail oriented. I believe those things are very key when you're talking about leading a district with the size of ours. I'm a collaborative leader. You have to be collaborative, be willing to work with many different partnerships, many different boards, to make sure that we provide a framework that's a positive environment for our students and staff. But also, I think it takes being a transparent leader. I have no problem being transparent when it comes to what we're doing as a board, what we're trying to do as a vision for the board, but also what we have coming forth in the future. So I think those are all qualities that I could bring to the board as a leader.
Thank you. Do you think that the North Carolina legislature has been an obstacle to quality education, from a failure to fully fund public schools? And if so, what is your plan to overcome this major impediment to quality public school education for all North Carolina children?
Well, we know that there's been some challenges with the state legislature. I think right now, the who we have in office up there now may see education as a debit, but they don't see it as an investment. I think that we have to change that mindset by producing outcomes that will help them see that we can be effective. Fully funding is definitely needed, but that's not the issue. I think we have to make sure we have to create standards here and establish those standards and present those to the public and to the legislators up there. But I think that being a collaborative leader and kind of working with those individuals in Raleigh would be beneficial and producing outcomes. We have to produce outcomes as a district, so that we can show that we deserve what is needed to educate our kids. And so we can't control everything, but we can control what we produce.
A question from the audience. Why is data important to ensure a successful school board in Mecklenburg County?
Well, you need data to truly measure where you were, where you are, and where you're trying to go. And without data, you have to have data to create effective policy. You don't know, you need data points, benchmarks, those different things to kind of identify, where are we not effectively serving our kids? I mean, that's why you have the report cards, the percentages, all the different things, even when it comes to even professional development. How many of the teachers have received the proper professional development? You need that type of data in order to effectively create policy for our district and for our students. So data is truly important.
Yeah, thank you. CMS recently unveiled planned next steps to tackle the third grade reading dilemma. And I'm pretty sure you read these planned next steps, right? A lot of them. So second and third grade teachers leverage district curriculum to implement standards aligned, culturally responsive instruction in an engaging and affirming and meaningful way. Intervention, second and third grade students are screened to determine if they need interventions, maybe academic, behavior, and attendance. Highly effective teachers, second and third grade students will have greater access to highly effective teachers. Professional development, there will be professional development there, social and emotional support, and student engagement. Tell me, with these planned next steps, do you think that the school board and the district can deliver on all of those steps?
That's a lot. I would say it's a lot. I mean, it sounds good, but if that's the case, I would, if I was on the board, I would want to hear the plan and the strategy of how that's going to take place. Because as a board member, it's our job to say, okay, superintendent, whoever that he or she may be, if these are the goals that we're trying to accomplish, give us the strategy. And then from there, is to hold them accountable and have benchmarks throughout the year to see where we are in achieving those different things. And I want to be clear that I think all those things are great. And I think if we achieve those things, we can move the needle. But it's not gonna change overnight. And I hope that everyone can understand that and be, and as a leader, you have to be transparent with not only parents, with community leaders, community partners, that this is going to take time, but we have to be transparent with how we're going to do it and what we're doing to do that. So I think all those things are great, but I think as a board member, I would want to see how we're going to get there.
Yeah, talk to me about the unique areas of concerns that exist in District 3.
District 3 has a lot of, I would say, similar concerns as the entire district. I think that there needs to be standards established across the entire district. Freedom and flexibility is what's created this dilemma of what we're in. Because what's going on in certain schools, you can have two schools in the same district and doing two different things and getting two drastically different outcomes. I think, yes, principals and administrators do need some flexibility to work within their schools, but at the same time, there needs to be certain standards across the board, regardless of what learning community that you're in, that need to be standardized. And I think we left that, we've gone away from that. And I think there needs to be certain standards across the board that learning community superintendents as well as principals are following in order to set, make sure that the correct expectations are set for our teachers and our students.
And why don't you think that's happening now?
Well, it's a culture that's been brewing over years and years and years, that the freedom and flexibility. And I think that's it's written in the boards, like not policy, but the board like standards that they've created, that they want to create a culture of freedom and flexibility. And when you've had that culture brew for so long, that's when you have, certain schools, say in the southeast part of the district, teaching towards the ACT test, right? Knowing how to learn how to take these tests. But then when you say in the northwest part of Charlotte, those individuals, they're just trying to teach to the EOCs, and that's when you have a standard search and say, hey, we're only shooting to score 17 on the ACT, to where you can't even get into a state school with a 17, right? Mm-hmm. But if you set a certain standard across the board, to where every high school is teaching certain skill sets in their schools on how do we pass the ACT, how do we teach towards these tests, that's how you become more college and career ready.
You were on the equity committee. Talk to me, how did that go? And did the school board support the equity committee? And did you make any progress?
Yes, we did make some progress. I would say through my work on the equity committee and also on the Black Political Caucus, jointly, we were able to change the discipline policy. It was policy at that time, it was called policy JKD. And through advocacy, through study, through relationships that were built on the equity committee and both the caucus education committee, because I want to give that committee credit because they also helped. We picked the JKD policy was about allowing short-term suspensions, giving parents the ability to appeal that, because prior to that, if you receive a 10-day suspension or a 9-day suspension, you cannot appeal it. And I think that was, as you can see, that at that time, 80% of the students that were receiving those suspensions were Black students, but they only made up 40% of the district. So I think that was one big key that was done. And now we're focused on student wellness. And we were definitely supported by the board. And I hope they can continue the committee and continue to allow individuals such as myself to continue work with that committee to do the good work that it's been doing.
Gotcha. A question from the audience. How will parents be considered and interacted with if they express opinions that differ from that of the board? How would you connect and interact with parents who have opinions and don't see eye to eye with the board? How will you still engage with them and interact with them?
For me, one, as a board member, it's important to make yourself accessible and available, and to not only parents but all the community members, community partners. And if they're, I would love to hear what they say, because these are the parents and children that we serve. But as a board member, I think it's the best thing to do is to make yourself available and accessible and responsive. I think a lot of times individuals may not respond as well or make themselves even accessible to parents. I think so. As a board member, I would want to make myself accessible and responsive to all parents.
Yeah. This conversation just between me and you. You've seen the school board. What do you think is missing on the school board? Because we've been talking about achievement gap for years. What's missing on the school board, or what is the school board not doing? What's missing?
I think that one, I've touched on it earlier. I think that the culture of freedom and flexibility has been a culture that's been just kind of circling throughout the district and throughout the board. And doing that, I mean, there have been a lack of standards that were set for the few superintendents that we've had, right? So it's kind of almost been the superintendent has been controlling the board or running the board. And I think that should be the other way around, to where the board should be influencing and setting the goals for what we're trying to accomplish and ensuring that and hold the superintendent accountable as well as his administrative team. I think that over the years, I think it's been the other way around, to where the superintendent has really just been kind of moving along as they want. So I think now you need a leadership that can be more collaborative in working with the superintendent, but making sure to understand that we're governing so we can have better outcomes.
Yeah, and better outcomes. And you do believe that better outcomes, that we can improve these test scores with the Black and brown students? I do. I went to this board the board meeting on this past Tuesday. I mean, we saw growth. Was it a lot? No. But I think if we continue on this path, yes, we can get to that. I think the board's goal is to be at the goal is to be at 65% of Black and Hispanic kids by 2024, I think is the goal. So I think we can continue on this path if we can continue to work, identify a really effective superintendent and work together with that superintendent. If we continue on this process, we can reach those goals. Yes. Gotcha. And then one last question, superintendent, if elected, you will help pick a new superintendent. Talk to me about the process and what are you looking for, and who do we need in order to take us to the next level? For me, the superintendent needs certain qualities. Excellence, it should be an expectation of that superintendent. I think equity should be a priority. Has to have certain type of management skills to not only manage his team, and I think that it is also important for him to identify who he surrounds himself with, because a lot of times we're keeping some of the same people but different superintendents. So we have to figure out what kind of team is he bringing, or he or she bring along with him or her. Also, like I said, detailed and data oriented, but open to listening, not only to the community, but also open to listen to the educators, because those are individuals who are every day front line working with our students. And we need to make sure we have a superintendent that listens and has an ear with our educators as well as our TAs, everyone, to be successful. But also be supportive of the educators as well, provide them with what they need in order to be successful. When I talk identifying professional development,
top curriculums, consistent curriculum. Those are things that will matter.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rankin, for this conversation. You have 90 seconds to give your closing statement.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just want to say once again, thank you to the African American Caucus for the opportunity to speak with you and your members. My three things I'm running on is quality education for all of our students, regardless of what learning community you're in, equitable resources for all students across the board, including staff. That means not only financial resources, but social capital, human capital, professional development, partnerships. These are things that will all take place, all type of resources, equitable resources that were needed for our kids to be successful. But also an improved experience for our students and our educators and our staff. Right now, with the environment that they're in right now has been tainted. And I think that we have to figure out as a board, how can we improve the environment for our educators and for our students? Because right now students don't want to go to school. You heard a lot about absenteeism. We got to identify the why. And we have to fix that environment as a board, so the individuals want to come to school and want to learn, and identify those educators that want to be there and improve that environment for them. So for me, those are the three characteristics I'm gonna be running on. If you can always go to rankingforeducation.com and look up more. You can contact me via rankingforeducation@gmail.com. So once again, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin, and we want to thank all of our candidates. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there. I'm going to turn this portion of the program back over to the President, B. Coates. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone that attended this forum. We hope that you have learned a lot and that it was an educational opportunity for you. I would also like to thank our moderator, Mr. Dedrick Russell, as well as the candidates for their participation in this evening's forum as well. Prior to concluding this evening's forum, I would just remind all people that are on this evening's forum and or watching that we will host another school board forum on Thursday, September the 22nd, which is next Thursday from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., where we will be featuring our districts 4, 5, and 6 candidates. And then on September the 27th, 2022, which is a Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m., we will be hosting our general body meeting of the African American Caucus of the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party. And once again, thank you all for coming and joining us